All right. My name is Carolina Conway. I am an environmental education intern with Piedmont Environmental Alliance and a Wake Forest student, and I'm here today with Jamie Maier.
I'm Jamie Maier. I'm the Executive Director of Piedmont Environmental Alliance, the local environmental group focused on building a more just, resilient, and sustainable community.
Awesome. How did you first become interested in environmentalism?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's a question I get a lot. I think the answer is a combination of two things. One is that my mother was really concerned with the environment and she really focused on recycling when I was a kid. So it wasn't uncommon when I was a kid to see my mother kind of digging through a trash can to pull out, a piece of paper or a toilet paper roll that could get recycled. And I think that plus, I grew up in a suburban community, but it was a really heavily forested community. And so I played in the woods all day, every day that I could. And I think at a pretty early age, those two things, that connection to nature and the environment, along with being aware of the human impacts on the planet, kind of combined to lead towards my current career.
Awesome. What's one of your favorite memories in your career?
Yeah, that is a hard question because I have so many moments that were really educational and special to me. I'll talk about a few categories of things. One is one of the internships that I had actually when I was in college was in Washington, D.C., and I was able to plan a speaker series to invite speakers to speak to all of the interns that are in Washington, D.C. over any given summer. And that summer was probably the first time I was introduced to a ton of different ideas about politics and advocacy and action. We got speakers like Gloria Steinem, like Senator Paul Wellstone, like John Kerry, a ton of different folks. In fact, we had Al Gore come speak. It was after he had lost the election. It was his first public appearance, was speaking in our speaker series to a group of young folks. And so really getting involved in thinking about the way that change is made. And then I'll say in jobs after that, some of my highlights have been times when I've been able to participate in direct action. So being able to go to a shareholders meeting, a corporate shareholders meeting, and advocate for a position, being able to be on the street collecting petitions and talking about an issue that I care about, or organizing big events. Those are all things that I love doing. It's hard to just pick one.
That sounds fascinating. It's awesome. What's one change that you would like to make with your work?
So one of the biggest things that I think about is that, I think as I've grown in my career, I have a real dedication to being a change maker and a leader in my community, and I really think about how I can help build the leadership skills of everyone around me and build a connection to the community. So what I really want to see is more people who have both the skills and the passion to take any small area, whether it's in the arts or climate action, and really understand and start to facilitate change to make a better world. So I think it sounds big, but I think it can be small, it can be local to your household, but how can I help folks of all ages begin to build those skills and have those avenues to become change makers?
Great. And that leads us into our last question, which is, do you have any tips for someone who wants to do something like you're doing?
Yeah, that's another great question. These are good questions. I think get as much experience as you can, and don't be afraid to take action and to try things. I think I'm a firm believer, just as career advice in general, that every experience really leads us to our next experience. So if we dive headfirst into whatever we're doing, whether it's working retail or at a restaurant or working for a nonprofit or doing an internship, we're going to figure out what we like to do and what we're good at in a new way. And that's going to lead us to success in the next step. So I say just get out there and start diving into things that you're passionate about. And I think that that's a way to really find a career that's fulfilling and meaningful.
Great. That's great advice. And so thank you so much for that and for talking with me today.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia McElhaney. I am a Wake Forest University junior studying biology and environmental studies. I'm also one of the environmental education interns in the Wake Forest Office of Sustainability. And today I am joined by Professor Justin Catnoso. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am a professor of journalism here at Wake Forest. I've been teaching at Wake Forest a really long time. I started as a visiting lecturer in 1993 and have been a full-time journalist my whole life. And in 2011, I joined the faculty full-time, and now I'm a freelance journalist that covers environmental issues and climate change and climate policy.
That's awesome. How did you first become interested in environmentalism?
There's a direct line between my interest in environmentalism and Professor Miles Silman. In the winter of, I think it was 2013, I had been here maybe about a year and a half full time. And I met Dr. Silman in his office over in Winston Hall, and he knew of my career as a local journalist covering local issues, primarily local business issues. And he knew I had stepped away from the business journal and said, you need a new story. You should come with me to Peru. That he was going to Peru that summer for 2.5 weeks. And that if I went with him, he would introduce me to some of the finest tropical ecologists on Earth. And maybe I could find a new story in either environmental protection or climate change. But I just thought, what a remarkable opportunity. And I also thought it was crazy. I've always considered myself something of an environmentalist, but was never an environmental reporter. But that particular meeting and Miles' introduction to his thinking and his research, and then his really generous offer to take me with him is really what turned me on to becoming an environmental journalist. But that first trip to Peru in the summer of 2013, where I spent 17 days in the southern Peruvian Amazon with Professor Silman, really changed the arc of my career and got me interested in covering climate change, because what I got immersed in was how warming temperatures were affecting a warm climate and just how much was at stake in a place like Peru, where so much of the world's biodiversity is located. I didn't know any of this, and I was fascinated by it. And he was right. He introduced me to some of the most accomplished tropical ecologists on Earth, because there was a big international meeting while I was there. And it was the start of a new direction in my career, and one that I've been really, really glad to be on.
So other than your time in Peru, what is one of your other favorite memories of your career?
So I've been a journalist a long time. I started writing for newspapers when I was about 12 years old in high school. So I've got lots of great memories of being a journalist in college when I was at Penn State University, and then as a local journalist in Pennsylvania and Tennessee and then North Carolina for a really long time. But when I think about my environmental memories and what I really spend a lot of time on, which is covering climate change and climate policy, there are two things that stand out. In December of 2015, I got to cover the United Nations Climate Summit in Paris, and was there for the signing of the Paris Agreement, which I've come to understand and appreciate as one of the most influential and impactful meetings of world leaders, really since the end of World War II. It's when 196 nations came together and decided not to let the world burn up. We have gotten off track since 2015 with the Paris Agreement, and there's so much politics involved in that, and I've covered that process ever since. I've covered 4 climate summits since then, and keep waiting for the progress of Paris to come back to these climate summits. But that experience in Paris was just so inspiring and so invigorating and so hopeful. And the other story that really stands out is I got to spend some time in South Africa, and I reported from the bush in in the savannas and grasslands, and I reported on the poaching of wild animals, particularly rhinoceros, and met a team of really wildlife defenders that were fighting poachers. And I got to tell that story about these like anti-poaching paramilitary units. And then these incredible Black Africans that were teaching and training really small children in really poor villages to appreciate wildlife and to appreciate the animals that they lived very close to. And that they would be the future of environmental protection in South Africa if we were going to have these iconic animals that were driving extinct, whether they're elephants or rhinos or wildebeest or like any of these spectacular animals that are being hunted and poached for a variety of reasons. So like just being able to travel the world and write about these stories has been such a gift. And I write for Manga Bay, which is one of the leading environmental news organizations in the world. We publish in 9 different languages. We have 20 million readers a month. And so I've got a great platform in which to report my stories from.
So do you have any tips for someone who is interested in becoming an environmental journalist?
You know, the tip is like getting involved early and getting involved writing early. We at Wake Forest have a really good journalism program, and we have really great opportunities to write, like at the sustainability office or for the Old Gold and Black. I started writing for newspapers early, like when I was a teenager. And then that just sort of morphed into this really long career as a journalist that's gone in many different directions. But the sooner you get involved in understanding the issues and then figuring out how to tell your stories, whether it's in print, whether it's in a podcast, whether it's in a short video, there's lots of different ways we can communicate this message. We offer these opportunities to practice all this in our journalism minor at Wake Forest, and lots of outlets to get that message out. So that would be my tip, like follow your curiosity, follow your heart, and get started early.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Catanoso, for joining me today. Thank you all for watching.
Can you speak a little bit about your career and what you do, and maybe one of your favorite memories from your career?
Well, my career now is agricultural. I'm a grassroots agriculturalist, otherwise known as an urban farmer. And I would say like one of my favorite memories would be like some of my favorite memories are starting gardens with my children. Like we started a garden right there on Cherry Street. It was called the Kimberly Kids Garden. And my children and some more children came out and put a whole garden together, put up a fence, put out like 20 beds. So that was like one of my favorite. And after we was done, I took them all to Whole Foods and got them a pitcher of Kool-Aid, pitcher of lemonade, and they split it. You know, I didn't have a lot of money, but they was very appreciative just to have their cup of lemonade apiece. So that's like one of my favorite memories.
Yeah, that's a great memory.
Yeah.
How did you become first interested in environmentalism?
I will keep it honest. Was actually like coming home from prison. When I came home from prison, I was used to being in such a sterile environment. Like everything was so concrete and marble, no grass, no outside time or none of that. And you know, of course, growing up as a youth, you know, I love to be outside playing in the forest and you know just doing a lot of running around with dogs and stuff. But it never really clicked in. Like I really learned to appreciate environment a lot more once I've been separated from it. So when I came home, I was more intentional about trying to impact the environment positively. So
Great, yeah.
yeah.
And what's your day-to-day work life now? What do you do every day for your work?
Well, I really garden at home now. like over the summer, I started a garden in Happy Hill. I was doing that 3 days a week. But now, I've just transformed my garden from summer to fall. And we just got a donation of 6 chickens. So I put those in the hot tunnel. They've been pretty much cleaning out the hot tunnel for me. So up until like this past week, I've been doing a lot of like administrative things, council work, applying for grants and, trying to really build our capacity. But now that that's kind of set, I'm back into the yard.
Great. What's one change you would like to make with your work?
Well, I would actually like to see more children involved. Like my children, they're not in school right now. They're doing everything online and virtual. And I would like to continue that. When everybody else returns back to school, I like to have some type of infrastructure where I can facilitate teaching to them, my children, and the children of my friends. Like trying to keep it pretty tight knit. So that's why I would like to see more education through grassroots agriculture.
Great.
Yeah.
What tips do you have or advice for kids who are looking to get involved with agriculture or someone who wants to do something similar to what you're doing?
Well, I would always really encourage people to start right where they're at instead of trying to go out to you know, buy a field or trying to lease a land or anything like that. Start in your yard, and if you can't start in your yard, because you're renting or whatever, get you a container and start there. Just try to learn the soil and the seeds, and I like to do things without machines. I think it gives us a better feel for the soil and the earth. So try to get really familiar with the hand tools and really try to learn to identify weeds from plants and herbs or wildflowers that might pop up out the ground, and learn the bugs a little more. Just kind of get more intimate with the earth. That's what I would try to encourage people to do.
Good. That's good advice.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say about why you love your job?
Well, this job really grew on me. I never really intended to be a so-called farmer, but it's been very restorative towards my peace, and it's really helped me, find a purpose in life that wasn't chosen for me. Or somebody say, "Oh, he's tall, he can play basketball or whatever." So, I think this has really been revealing towards me. It's helped me return to a lot of family values that's probably been forgotten about over the years. So I think it's really been helping me be able to create a legacy for myself. That's something I could really be honored and feel proud about.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Carolina.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be joined today by Kristen Haaf. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Julia. So I'm Kristen Haaf. I am a practicing landscape architect and urban planner. I have a design studio called Roots First Design. We're based here in Winston-Salem and Asheville, North Carolina. And at Roots First, we design spaces that help to connect people with nature and to repair damaged landscapes. So we work at all scales, small scales, and big scales, and happy to be here today to talk to you.
Thank you so much. So how did you first become interested in environmentalism?
Well, I feel like I can trace this pretty far back. I think it's my dad actually is just a total naturalist. So he was a backyard birder. He loved to do things outside in nature and have us come along. He loves camping, and we started camping when I was really young. He would teach us how to watch birds out the window, and just generally had an appreciation of nature. And so like really showed that to me when I was young, and of course spent a lot of time outside. And then on my mom's side, my her parents owned a greenhouse and a floral business. And so when I was young, spent a lot of time when I visited them, kind of running through the greenhouse and watching my grandfather plant plants. And so I would say both of those early experiences were really formative. And so, but even like in high school, I really loved the idea of the Earth Day Fair and kind of celebrating the environment. Like really loved all of that. And then when I was in college, it just was clear that I wanted to study environmental issues. And I did a lot of backpacking during that time and just spending time for like weeks at a time out in nature. And so I guess that's where that all began.
So how did you end up in your current career?
So people end up in landscape architecture usually through a fairly circuitous path. A lot of times people study other things in their undergrad and then don't really discover the field of landscape architecture until they're kind of even working or at least in college. And so I had an undergraduate degree in environmental science and policy. I was super interested in the environmental science, but more on the ecology side. And I went to a college where it was more pre-med. So it was kind of hard to find where I fit in that way. And then I was really interested in the policy side of it, like the social science of it. But I didn't just want to be in a think tank or in some sort of like policy office, essentially, kind of making policy. I wanted to be more connected to both people and the land, like actually be immersed a little bit more in nature. So when I was in college, I took a service learning course, a really fantastic service learning course where I had the chance to volunteer at a nonprofit called Seeds in Durham, North Carolina, doing community gardening. So planting in the garden and just kind of helping out wherever they needed help. And when I graduated college, Seeds, where I had volunteered, had an AmeriCorps Avista position open. And so my first job out of college was working in this community gardening organization. And then after I was there as an AmeriCorps, then I got hired to stay. And when I was there, I learned about the field of landscape design, landscape architecture, and urban planning. And so I became interested in all of those. And then that's how I decided to go into those fields.
Awesome. What is one of your favorite memories of your career?
So I told you before we started talking that it's really hard to answer this question because in my career, what I love about it so much is that we're always working on different types of projects. So it could be like a small residential garden. It could be a schoolyard, kind of thinking about like natural play and how kids play outside. It could be in more of an urban area and like planting shade trees, like all different kinds of things. And so really, when I think about memories, I think about like all kinds of different memories. I'll give an example of one recently, was just being on site at a project, pretty large project actually, where they're going to be building like an earth awareness kind of environmental education center in the mountains, and just getting the chance to kind of hike around and get to know the land, and that sense of possibility of like what can happen here and how we can, through our design, kind of both heal the land, but also help to connect people like more closely with that land and like see the things and see some of the beauty that we're seeing. I guess when I think about all my best memories, it's about that idea of like that sense of possibility when you're first getting to know the land, and that like you can like imagine all the different kinds of things that could happen there. So those are the kinds of memories that come to mind for me.
That's amazing. So what is one change or impact that you hope to make with your work moving forward?
So I'm going to answer this one fairly simply, and because this is an idea that I got from somebody that I worked with when I was pretty young in my career. It was a much older fellow who was actually an engineer, but he had kind of gone over to the landscapes architecture side of things kind of later in his career, and he was saying that he had been working in kind of road building for a lot of his career. And at some point he realized that the best legacy he can leave is just to plant more trees, because, you know, there are kind of those words of wisdom about how you can kind of take small steps now, like you can plant a seed of a tree now and it'll just continue to give back for like long after you're gone. And so I feel like that's like the best impact I could make, is just to be planting as many beautiful plants and trees as I can, like while I'm doing this work.
Awesome. So do you have any tips for anyone that might be interested in the field of landscape architecture?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say learn more, learn everything you can about the field. I think that the field of landscape architecture is amazing. There are so many different ways that you can engage in this field. There are I feel like a lot of landscape architecture is really at the cutting edge of thinking about policy, thinking about intersectionality in the environment, thinking about kind of new ways that we could be building our cities and building our settlements so that we are more connected with nature. And so I would say just try to learn as much as you can about the kind of work that could be out there, and also try to get out and just see the world and get to know the world, right? Like get to know different landscapes, and remember that different landscapes, like all different places are all different landscapes. Like every place is its own unique place, and to kind of really appreciate that. And then I'd love to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me about it. I love to be an ambassador for the field of landscape architecture. I think we're doing really important work. And I think we need more and more young people who are interested in environmental issues to see what a great field it is and how much of a difference you can make by actually having a vision about how you could kind of change a landscape for the better, and then take the steps to actually do it.
That all sounds amazing. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today about
Happy to do it, Julia.
Yes.
All right.
Hello. Do you mind introducing yourself?
So my name is Maier Barnette. I am the director of the Forsyth County Office of Environmental Assistance and Protection, and I have been a county employee working for the local government for 34 years. My agency implements the provisions of the Clean Air Act in Forsyth County. So our mission is to protect public health in the community by preventing pollution, to enhance quality of life, and to protect the environment.
Great. How did you first become interested in environmentalism?
I have always considered pollution to be something that needs to be prevented and addressed, especially when it's unnecessary or when it's preventable, because it affects the health of every person and every plant and animal in our community. Our entire ecosystem is interconnected, and anything that we do affects the world around us. All of our daily activities and decisions have an impact on the world that we live in, and I think it's important to prevent pollution.
Great. What's one of your favorite memories or stories from your job, your career?
Anytime we are successful at achieving one of our goals, it is very rewarding. And that can be reducing air pollution from a facility, like an industrial facility, or it can be getting an illegal dump site cleaned up where somebody's put a bunch of garbage in a place that it doesn't need to be, that threatens the health and safety of the community and potentially water quality and other resources. So anytime we're successful in achieving the components of our mission, it feels good because we feel like we're doing the right things for the right reasons.
That's great. What's one change you would like to make with your work moving forward?
Ultimately, I would like for my agency to be successful in helping to raise public awareness and help people be more informed about how the activities in our daily lives and the decisions that we make affect the world around us. I think with more information, people can make more informed and responsible decisions to benefit everyone.
That's great. And do you have any tips or advice for someone looking to get involved in policy or who wants to do something like what you do?
I think because a lot of environmental work is fundamentally based on science, I would recommend pursuing an education that it involves a lot of science and math, which are the prerequisite qualifications to enter into the profession that I'm in. I think that, again, the more we understand, the more informed we will be. And it's important to have a good fundamental understanding of the basis for why we need to protect the environment, why it's a good idea, what the benefits are, what the negative outcomes might be if we are not successful in doing that. And, you know, there are a lot of government programs and policies and regulations that are in place to protect everyone in our society and locally everyone in our community.
Well, great. That's great advice. And thank you so much for all of your wisdom and for talking with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.